Good morning and welcome. Before this week takes off and pulls you into its pace, pause here with me for just a few quiet moments. Monday often arrives carrying pressure before you even open your eyes. But I want to remind you gently that you do not have to face it alone. God is already present in this new week, and He is inviting you to begin it with Him rather than rushing ahead on your own strength. Maybe last week left you tired, or maybe it left unfinished worries that followed you into today. I want you to hear this softly. You do not have to carry that weight into these next 7 days. His mercies are new every morning, and that means this week is not defined by last week's struggles. You are being given a fresh start, not because you have earned it, but because His grace meets you here regardless. There is hope waiting quietly for you this Monday. The kind of hope that does not depend on everything going smoothly, but simply trusts that you are not walking through this week unnoticed. Scripture reminds us that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength, and that renewal can begin right here, in this small, still moment before your day begins to move. So I speak a blessing over this week ahead of you. May your steps be steady, your mind be clear, and your heart be at peace no matter what this week requires of you. May the Lord go before you into every meeting, every conversation, every decision, and every quiet moment in between. He is near to you now, and He will remain near through all of it. Let's bring this week to Him together. Lord, thank you for this new beginning and for your mercy that meets us here. Quiet our anxious thoughts about what this week may hold, and remind us that we belong to you before we belong to our schedules. Guide our steps, strengthen our hearts, and walk closely with us through every day ahead. We surrender this week into your hands. Amen. Come close for a moment before this week begins to move. Let your hands rest, let your breathing slow, and let your mind settle just enough to hear something gentle before the noise of the day arrives. I know how Monday can feel, not just as a day on the calendar, but as a weight that presses down before you have even had the chance to stand up. I know there are mornings when the thought of the week ahead feels heavier than the night before ever did. I want you to know, softly and honestly, that whatever you are carrying into this morning has not gone unnoticed. Not by Him. Not for a single moment. There is a particular kind of tiredness that comes from carrying last week into this one. Unfinished tasks, unresolved conversations, disappointments that never quite settled, worries that followed you home and never really left. Maybe you went to bed last night already bracing yourself for what today would demand, replaying everything that did not go the way you hoped, wondering how you are supposed to start fresh when you still feel the residue of everything that came before. If that is you this morning, I am not here to rush you past that feeling. I am not here to tell you to simply move on because it is a new day. I am here to remind you slowly and sincerely that you are allowed to feel the weight of it, and that even here, even now, you are held. Scripture tells us that He is close to the brokenhearted, and that nearness is not something distant or symbolic. It means that in the quiet corners of your life where no one else has seen the exhaustion you carry into each new week, He has already been there, waiting, not with pressure, but with presence. Not asking you to fix yourself before you come to Him, but meeting you exactly as you are, tired eyes and all, unfinished thoughts and all, uncertain heart and all. Comfort like that does not shout. It does not demand that you perform readiness. It simply stays close, the way someone sits beside you without needing to say a word. Maybe you are carrying disappointment from last week into this one, a conversation that did not go the way you hoped, a goal you did not reach, a moment where you feel you fell short of who you wanted to be. I want you to hear this gently today. You do not have to let that disappointment define how this week begins. There is no shame in acknowledging that something did not go as planned. There is no shame in feeling discouraged before you have even started again. Comfort does not mean pretending the disappointment did not happen. It means being held gently in the middle of it, without needing to explain it all away before you are allowed to feel at peace. Some of you are carrying worry into this week for people you love, wondering how a difficult relationship will unfold over these next few days, wondering if a loved one's struggles will ease or deepen, wondering if the tension in your home will find any resolution before the week is through. You lie awake sometimes rehearsing conversations that have not even happened yet, bracing for outcomes you cannot control. I want to remind you softly this morning that your prayers for the people you love have never gone unheard. Not one. Not even the quiet ones whispered in traffic, not even the ones you carried silently through a sleepless night. There is a verse that says His mercies are new every morning, and I want you to sit with that phrase for a moment rather than letting it pass by quickly. New. Not shaped by how last week ended, not measured by how well you handled the pressure, the deadlines, the difficult moments that tested your patience. New, freely given, waiting for you here at the start of this week, regardless of how the last one closed. This Monday is not an extension of every unfinished thing from before. It is a fresh mercy, quietly available to you the moment you are willing to receive it. I think sometimes we carry a quiet guilt into the beginning of a new week, believing that comfort is only for those who ended the last one well, only for those who managed their time wisely, kept their patience intact, and left nothing undone. But comfort was never meant to be something earned through a flawless performance. It is a gift offered freely to the weary, the overwhelmed, the ones who feel like they are already behind before the week has truly started. If that is you this morning, you are not being overlooked. You are exactly who this moment was prepared for. Let your mind rest, just for a while, on the image of someone sitting quietly beside a person who feels overwhelmed by what lies ahead, not offering a checklist, not offering pressure to perform, just staying close. Just being present in the uncertainty. That is what this moment can be for you. You do not need to have this week figured out before you begin it. You do not need to feel confident or spiritually strong right now. You simply need to be willing to sit still long enough to notice that you are not walking into this week alone. There is a gentle stillness in knowing that someone sees the fullness of what you carry. The parts you present to your coworkers and your family, and the quieter parts you keep hidden even from the people closest to you and loves you the same regardless. That is the comfort being offered to you this morning. Not comfort based on how productive this week will be, but comfort rooted in who He is, steady, patient, unchanging, present even when the week ahead feels unclear or overwhelming. Maybe your body is already tense with the thought of what this week requires. Tightness in your shoulders before your first meeting. A heaviness in your chest before the first difficult conversation has even happened. I want to speak gently into that this morning and remind you that pausing here in this quiet moment is not a delay from what matters. It is preparation. It is permission to let your body soften before it is asked to carry the demands of the week ahead. Think for a moment about how many Mondays you have started already exhausted, already anticipating everything the week might take from you before it had even truly begun. This Monday can be different, not because your responsibilities have disappeared, but because you are choosing, even in this small moment, to receive comfort before you step into the busyness. That choice, quiet as it may seem, is significant. It is an act of trust, even when trust feels difficult to hold on to. Some of you are grieving quietly as this week begins. The loss of a relationship that ended, the loss of a season that used to feel simpler, the loss of energy you used to have before life became this demanding. I want you to know that grief does not disappear simply because a new week has started. It is not a sign of weak faith. It is love with nowhere left to go. And in this quiet moment, that love, that grief, is gently being acknowledged rather than dismissed. There is comfort in knowing you do not have to explain yourself this morning. You do not have to justify why you feel hesitant about the week ahead, why you feel behind before you have even started, why certain worries have followed you into today uninvited. This is a safe place to simply exist as you are, unfinished, uncertain, still deeply loved. That love has never depended on how well you managed the pressures of last week or how prepared you feel for this one. Let your shoulders drop just a little more. Let the tension in your chest loosen, even slightly. You do not have to solve every challenge of this week before it has even begun. You do not have to carry the weight of every meeting, every responsibility, every difficult conversation all at once, right now, in this quiet space. Comfort is not something you have to chase after this morning. It is already here, patiently waiting for you to notice it, to receive it, and to let it settle gently into the tired places of your heart before the week asks anything more of you. There is something quietly powerful about the beginning of a new week. Not because the responsibilities have changed, not because the same challenges from before have disappeared, but because with each Monday, something in the spirit is given permission to begin again. I want to speak to you gently about this today, because so many of us carry last week into this one without even realizing it, dragging old frustrations, old failures, old versions of ourselves into a week that was never meant to hold them. His mercies are new every morning. And I want you to hear that not as a phrase you have heard so often that it loses its weight, but as a promise, steady and unchanging, that no matter how last week ended, this week carries a mercy that has never been used before. It was not shaped by the mistakes you made, the patience you lost, or the goals you did not reach. It is fresh, untouched, given freely, simply because His faithfulness does not depend on your performance from the days before. I think we underestimate how much courage it takes to believe that this week can be different. It is easy to open your eyes on a Monday, already defeated, already assuming the same tensions will resurface, the same patterns will repeat, the same struggles that followed you through last week will simply continue uninterrupted. But encouragement is not about pretending the past did not happen. It is about trusting that the past does not have the final say over what these next 7 days can become. Maybe you have been telling yourself quietly that this week will likely go the same way the last one did, that nothing significant will shift, that you are simply moving through the motions again. I want to gently remind you this morning that encouragement is not about having a perfectly mapped out plan for the week. It is about taking one small step forward today, even if your motivation feels thin, even if your energy feels low. You do not need to feel fully ready for this week. You simply need enough courage to begin it. There is a quiet strength found in those who wait patiently, who do not rush ahead trying to control every outcome of the week before it has even started, but instead choose to trust the process, even when the pace feels slow. Scripture reminds us that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength, and that renewal is not always loud or immediate. Sometimes it looks like simply choosing to show up on Monday morning, tired but still willing to try, still willing to hope that this week holds something good. I want you to consider, for a moment, how many difficult weeks you have already made it through. Think about the Mondays that felt impossible, the weeks that stretched your patience thin, the seasons where you were certain you could not keep up the pace much longer. And yet here you are, still showing up, still willing to begin again, still listening to these words this morning. That in itself is evidence of a strength that was never entirely your own, a strength that has been quietly carrying you through week after week. Encouragement does not mean ignoring the real demands this week may bring. It means looking at them honestly while still choosing to believe that they are manageable, that you are not facing them without support. Whatever wore you down last week does not have to determine how you enter this one. Whatever mistake or misstep happened in recent days does not disqualify you from a fresh beginning this morning. Grace has a way of meeting us exactly where we stand, without requiring that we prove ourselves worthy first. I think of how easy it is to compare this week to someone else's, to look at how effortlessly others seem to move through their responsibilities while you feel like you are constantly catching up. But your week is not meant to mirror anyone else's pace. Your progress will not look identical to someone else's productivity. Encouragement today is not about matching anyone else's rhythm. It is about trusting that your process, even if it feels slower or more difficult, is shaping something in you that could not be formed any other way. There will be days this week when progress feels invisible, when your effort does not seem to produce immediate results, when you try to stay patient and still find yourself frustrated by Wednesday. I want to remind you gently that growth within a week is rarely a straight line. It winds, it circles back, it tests patience before it produces change. But every small effort, every quiet decision to keep showing up is being noticed, even when it feels unseen in the moment. Perhaps you are carrying disappointment from unanswered prayers regarding situations that were supposed to improve by now, wondering if your faith is strong enough to sustain another difficult week. I want to speak into that softly this morning. Faith is not the absence of doubt as this week begins. It is choosing to keep moving forward even when doubt lingers in the background. It is whispering, I still believe this week can hold something good, even when your circumstances have not yet shifted. That whisper matters more than you know. There is encouragement in remembering that you are not meant to carry this week entirely alone. So often we exhaust ourselves trying to manage every responsibility single-handedly, believing that asking for help or admitting struggle is a sign of weakness. But true strength is often found in surrender, in laying down the pressure to have every part of the week under control, and trusting that you are being supported even in the moments you feel like you are barely keeping pace. I want you to think about the small encouragements that quietly carried you through last week without you fully realizing their impact. A kind word at the right moment, an unexpected pause in a stressful day, a small answered prayer that reminded you that you had not been forgotten. These moments were not coincidences. They were gentle reminders that you are being watched over, even during weeks that felt overwhelming or uncertain. Encouragement also means giving yourself permission to pace this week without guilt. So many of us tie our worth to how much we accomplish, believing that if we are not constantly productive, we are somehow falling behind. But rest within a busy week is not the opposite of faithfulness. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do this week is to pause, breathe, and trust that everything does not depend solely on how much you manage to complete. I want to remind you today that a difficult Monday is not the same as a failed week. A hard start is simply a starting point, not evidence that the rest of the week is already determined. Every person who has ever pursued something meaningful has faced weeks that began heavier than they hoped, moments where continuing felt harder than giving up. What often separates a good week from a discouraging one is simply the choice to keep moving forward one day at a time. There is something deeply encouraging about knowing this week is not accidental. You were meant to hear these words this morning, not by coincidence, but because there is still purpose being formed in you, even in weeks that feel repetitive or unclear. The delays and setbacks you have experienced recently are not proof that you have been forgotten. They are often the quiet preparation for something you cannot yet fully see. Let this Monday be a gentle reset. Not because every circumstance outside of you has changed, but because something inside of you is choosing once again to believe that this week holds possibility. Encouragement is not about pretending this week will be effortless. It is about standing steady through whatever it brings, trusting that mercy meets you here, fresh and unearned, ready to carry you forward into whatever these next 7 days were designed to hold. There is a quiet kind of hope that does not depend on this week unfolding perfectly before it begins to grow. It is not loud. It does not promise that every meeting will go smoothly or every plan will fall into place, but it stays steady and patient, even when the week ahead looks uncertain from where you are standing right now. I want to speak gently into that today, because so many of us confuse hope with certainty, when in truth, hope is something far more grounded, far more enduring than knowing exactly how things will turn out. Hope is not the belief that this week will suddenly become easy simply because you have prayed over it. It is the quiet trust that you are not walking into these next 7 days alone, that whatever challenges arise are not the final word over your life, and that something is being worked out even in the ordinary, unremarkable moments of a regular week. Scripture reminds us that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength, and I want you to notice the word renew. It suggests that strength has been depleted before, perhaps even last week, and is now being restored, gently, gradually, enough for what today requires. Maybe you have been holding on to hope for a specific change for a long time now, watching it grow thin with every week that passed without much difference, every prayer that seemed to echo without response, every Monday that started to feel just like the one before it. I understand how tiring that repetition can be. I understand the temptation to stop expecting anything different, simply to protect yourself from another disappointing week. But I want to remind you softly this morning that hope deferred does not mean hope denied. A slow week does not mean a refused prayer. There is something sacred about choosing to hope again at the start of a week after last week did not bring what you had hoped for. It would be easier, in many ways, to simply lower your expectations so low that nothing this week could disappoint you. But that kind of protection comes with a cost, closing off the very space where a meaningful shift is meant to grow. Hope, even small and uncertain hope, keeps that space open for something good to enter. I want you to consider the quiet moments from previous weeks where things shifted without warning, where a conversation you dreaded turned out gently, where an answer arrived in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday you never expected much from. These moments remind us that timing is rarely something we can predict or control, and that what feels like a slow or repetitive week is not necessarily without movement beneath the surface. Sometimes the waiting itself, even within the structure of a single week, is doing something in you that could not be accomplished any other way. Hope often grows quietly, in the small and ordinary parts of a week, not in the dramatic breakthroughs we imagine before Monday even begins. It grows in the decision to show up fully on a hard Tuesday, in the willingness to pray again about the same situation you have prayed about for weeks, in the small, almost invisible choice to keep believing that this week still holds something good, even midweek, even when Wednesday feels heavier than you expected. These moments do not feel significant individually, but together they form a quiet resilience that carries you further than you realize. There may be situations you are carrying into this week that feel completely stuck. A work situation that seems unlikely to improve, a relationship that seems unlikely to soften, a financial pressure that seems unlikely to ease before the week is through. I want to gently remind you that stuck is often how things look right before they shift. What appears unmovable to you on a Monday morning is not unmovable to him. Hope does not require you to understand how change will come within these 7 days. It simply asks you to remain open to the possibility that it can. I think about how easy it is to measure hope by how we feel at the start of a week, assuming that if Monday feels heavy, the rest of the week must be heavy too. But hope is not primarily a feeling that has to remain consistent from day to day. It is a decision renewed each morning if necessary, to trust that this week is held by something greater than how it began. You can feel uncertain on Monday and still choose hope by Wednesday. You can feel discouraged in one meeting and still trust that this is not the full story of your week. There is comfort in remembering that hope has carried people through far harder weeks than this one. Every person who has walked a meaningful path has faced weeks that felt impossible from the very first morning, weeks where the path forward was unclear until it suddenly was not. History and the lives of those around us are filled with quiet testimonies of endurance, of ordinary weeks that eventually gave way to unexpected breakthroughs. You are part of that same pattern of quiet perseverance, even when this particular week does not feel that way yet. Perhaps this week you are waiting for something specific to shift, a decision to be made, a conversation to happen, a piece of news you have been anticipating for some time. I I want to remind you gently that waiting within a week is not wasted time. Even in days that feel unproductive or repetitive, growth is happening beneath the surface, much like a seed planted in soil, unseen for a while before it breaks through. What looks like a slow week to you may actually be the quiet work of preparation happening just beneath what you can see. Hope also means allowing yourself to imagine this week going well, even after previous weeks have taught you to guard your expectations. It is a gentle act of courage to picture a good outcome by Friday. To picture a peaceful resolution to something that has felt tense, without needing proof in advance that it will happen exactly that way. This kind of hope does not ignore the real demands of the week. It simply refuses to let Monday's heaviness have the final say over what the rest of the week can become. I want you to think about the people who have hoped on your behalf throughout difficult weeks, who have prayed for you even when you could not find the strength to pray for yourself, who have believed for your breakthrough during stretches when your own hope felt worn thin. That kind of support is a gift. A reminder that you are never carrying any single week entirely alone, even in the moments that feel most isolating. There is a difference between hoping in how this week will unfold and hoping in the one who holds the entire week in his hands. Meetings can shift unexpectedly, plans can fall apart, a Tuesday can look nothing like you imagined it would on Sunday night, but hope rooted in something deeper than circumstance remains steady even when the details of the week stay unclear. This is the kind of hope I want to gently place before you this morning, not dependent on knowing how each day will go, but resting quietly in trust. Some of you have been managing every part of your week so tightly for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to simply hope without needing to control every outcome. I want to remind you today that you are allowed to release that grip, even slightly, even just for this week. You are allowed to trust that you do not have to orchestrate every meeting, every conversation, every detail for something good to happen. Sometimes hope grows most freely in the moments we stop trying to force the week into a certain shape and instead choose to rest in trust. Let this Monday morning be a quiet reminder that hope is not naive, and it is not weakness, even when applied to something as ordinary as a regular work week. It is one of the most resilient forces available to the human heart, capable of carrying people through stretches of time that logic alone could never fully explain. Whatever this week holds for you, however uncertain the days ahead may seem from where you are sitting right now, hope remains available to you, patient and steady, quietly inviting you to believe once more that good things are still possible, even this week, even here, even in this. There is something quiet and sacred about speaking a blessing over the week ahead, not as a formality, not as words repeated out of habit before the busyness begins, but as a genuine declaration that good is being invited into these next 7 days. I want to speak that kind of blessing over you this morning, slowly, sincerely, the way one friend might speak life into another before a demanding stretch of time, not because the words themselves carry magic, but because they carry intention. And intention shapes the way we walk through each day that follows. To be blessed this week does not mean every meeting will go smoothly or every plan will unfold exactly as you hoped. It does not mean the difficulties you anticipate will simply vanish before Monday even ends. Blessing is something deeper, something steadier. It is the quiet assurance that you are being watched over through each day of this week, that even in the middle of deadlines and demands, there is provision, there is presence. There is a covering over your life that does not depend on the week looking perfect. This morning, I want you to receive that kind of blessing, not as something you must earn through performance, but as something freely given before the week has even begun. May your steps be steady this week, even when your schedule feels uncertain. Not the steadiness that comes from knowing exactly what each day will bring, but the steadiness that remains grounded even when circumstances shift without warning. Steadiness that allows you to move through a difficult Tuesday without losing your footing entirely. steadiness that carries you through an unexpected challenge on Thursday without unraveling everything you have built. This is the kind of steadiness that does not always make sense given the pressure around you, but settles into your spirit anyway, quiet and firm. May your mind be clear this week, especially in the moments when decisions feel overwhelming, when too many demands compete for your attention at once. So many of us carry mental clutter we are not even fully aware of, unfinished thoughts from last week, anxious calculations about what still needs to be done, a mind that rarely feels fully settled. I speak clarity over you this morning, permission to think one step at a time, permission to release the pressure of everything at once, permission to trust that you will have what you need for each moment as it comes. May your heart be at peace no matter what this week requires of you. There is a peace that depends on circumstances aligning perfectly, and there is a peace that remains steady even when circumstances do not. I speak the second kind of peace over you this morning, the kind that surpasses understanding, the kind that does not always make logical sense given your workload or your worries, but settles into your heart anyway, quietly refusing to be shaken by whatever this week brings your way. There is a blessing in believing that the Lord goes before you into every meeting, every conversation, every difficult decision this week will require. You do not have to walk into uncertain situations feeling entirely alone, wondering how things will unfold. I speak that kind of covering over your week, over the conversations you are dreading, over the decisions that still feel unclear, over the moments where you are not yet sure how things will resolve themselves. He has already gone ahead of you into each of those spaces. The Lord is near to you now, and I want to remind you that His nearness is not something you have to earn through a perfectly managed week. It is not reserved for those who handle every responsibility flawlessly or maintain unwavering patience through every difficult moment. It is offered freely to you regardless of how this week unfolds, regardless of the mistakes you might make along the way, regardless of the moments where your patience wears thin or your energy runs low by Thursday afternoon. I want to speak a blessing over your work this week, whether that means a job, a business, caregiving, or any responsibility that demands your time and effort. Not a promise that every task will be easy, but an invitation to trust that your effort matters even when it does not feel particularly significant in the moment. I speak purpose into your daily tasks this week, reminding you that even in repetitive or unremarkable work, something meaningful is being built. Something valuable is being cultivated, even when you cannot yet see the full picture. I want to speak a blessing over your relationships this week, the conversations you are anticipating with hesitation and the ones you are looking forward to with genuine warmth. For relationships that feel strained heading into this week, I speak gentle patience and understanding. For relationships that already bring you steadiness, I speak continued depth and continued trust. Whatever this week holds relationally, I speak grace over each interaction, especially the difficult ones you have been quietly dreading. I want to speak a blessing over your health this week, whether that means physical energy to sustain you through demanding days, or emotional stability to help you navigate whatever stress arises. For those feeling physically depleted as this week begins, I speak renewed strength. For those feeling emotionally worn down, I speak gentle restoration. You do not have to enter this week already running on empty. There is enough grace available to sustain you through each day, one at a time. There is a blessing available in your finances this week. Not a guarantee that every concern will resolve itself by Friday, but an invitation to trust provision even amid uncertainty. Whatever financial pressure you are carrying into this week, whatever bill or decision feels overwhelming right now, I speak peace into that pressure. You are not navigating these concerns unnoticed. Provision has a way of arriving at just the right time, even when the waiting stretches longer than you would prefer. I want to speak a blessing over your rest this week as well, because even a demanding schedule does not exempt you from needing genuine rest. I speak permission over you to step away when you need to breathe between tasks, to protect small moments of stillness even within a full week. Rest is not something you have to justify or earn through exhaustion first. It is something you are allowed to receive simply because you are human, and humans were never meant to move without pause. I want to speak a blessing over your faith this week, especially if it feels tested by the demands ahead. Faith does not need to feel strong or certain every single day of the week to remain real. I speak strength into the small, quiet moments where you choose to trust despite pressure, where you show up to your responsibilities even when you do not feel particularly spiritual, where you keep praying about the same concerns even as the week moves forward without immediate resolution. This blessing extends over how this week will end as well, not with a demand that you know exactly how Friday will look from where you stand on Monday, but with an invitation to trust that each day is being prepared with care. Whatever uncertainty you feel about how this week will unfold, whatever unresolved situations remain unclear right now, I speak steady guidance over each day, one step at a time. You do not need to see the entire week clearly. You simply need enough light for today. I want you to receive this blessing not as empty words spoken quickly before the week begins, but as a genuine declaration spoken intentionally over your life this morning. You are covered through each day ahead. You are held through every meeting, every conversation, every unexpected challenge this week may bring. Whatever you carry into this Monday, carry it knowing that blessing has already been spoken over your week, quietly working, quietly unfolding, even in ways you may not yet be able to see. Let this blessing settle into your spirit slowly, the way morning light gradually fills a room, not all at once, but steadily, gently, until each day of this week feels a little steadier, a little more peaceful, a little more hopeful than it might have otherwise. You are blessed this week, not because every circumstance will be easy, but because you are deeply, unconditionally cared for through each day, exactly as you are, exactly where you stand in this quiet and sacred beginning. There comes a moment at the start of every week when words are no longer about planning ahead, no longer about presenting a well-organized list of tasks and concerns, but simply about laying everything down before we take a single step into the days ahead. Surrender is not weakness. It is not giving up on the week before it has even begun. It is choosing gently and honestly to release the grip we have been holding on to so tightly, trusting that we were never meant to carry an entire week alone in the first place. I want to walk through that with you now, slowly, sincerely. As we come into this final and deepest part of our time together this morning, so much of how we approach a new week is spent trying to manage it in advance, trying to anticipate every obstacle, trying to control outcomes before they have even had the chance to unfold. It is exhausting, even when we do not fully realize how exhausting it has become, to carry that mental weight before Monday has truly started. Surrender begins with an honest admission that we cannot orchestrate every detail of this week alone, that our planning has limits, that our understanding of what lies ahead is incomplete. This is not a defeat. It is often the doorway to the very peace we have been searching for as we face these next 7 days. Lord, this morning we come to you just as we are, standing at the edge of a new week without pretending to have every detail figured out, without hiding the parts of our hearts that feel anxious about what these days may hold. You already know what we carry into this Monday. The worries about deadlines we have not spoken aloud, the fears about conversations we have been quietly dreading, the disappointments from last week that we have tried to manage on our own without fully releasing them. We do not need to explain ourselves to you. We simply come, open and honest, ready to lay this week down before you. Thank you for this new beginning, and thank you for the new mercy that comes with the start of this week. We confess that we often carry last week into this one, allowing old frustrations or unfinished concerns to shape how we approach these fresh 7 days. Help us release that weight now. Help us receive your mercy freely, Not because we managed everything perfectly before, but because it is who you are, faithful and unchanging even when our weeks are not. Quiet our anxious thoughts, Lord, as this week begins to take shape in our minds. So many of us carry hearts that race long before our feet ever touch the floor on a Monday morning, calculating every task, worrying over every meeting, rehearsing conversations that have not even happened yet. We ask for stillness this morning, not because this week has suddenly become simple, but because we are choosing to trust you with what feels complicated. Help us breathe a little slower as we step into these days, think a little softer, and move a little more gently than we might otherwise. Remind us that we belong to you before we belong to our schedules, Lord. So often the pace of a new week convinces us that our worth is measured by how much we accomplish, how efficiently we move through our tasks, how well we manage the demands placed upon us. Let that pressure loosen its grip this morning. We belong to you simply because you created us, called us, and love us with a love that does not fluctuate based on how productive or composed we manage to be this week. Heal what needs healing, Lord, as we step into these next 7 days. You know the places in us still tender from last week, the disappointments that lingered longer than we expected, the conversations that left us feeling unsettled even after they had ended. We do not ask for healing because we have somehow earned it through our effort, but because we trust your gentleness, your patience, and your willingness to meet us exactly where we are as this week unfolds. Begin that healing now, slowly, tenderly, in whatever way you know we need it most. Restore what needs restoring, Lord, as this week begins. Restore energy in places where we feel depleted. Restore patience in relationships that have grown tense. Restore clarity in decisions that have felt overwhelming. We do not need to see the entire week clearly to trust that restoration is possible day by day. We simply ask that you begin the work now, even in small, quiet ways we may not fully notice until we reach Friday and realize how far we have come since Monday morning. Guide our steps through this week, Lord, and walk with us through each day, from the first meeting on Monday to the final task on Friday. We do not ask for a week free of challenges, but we do ask for your presence steadying us through them. Help us remember, in the middle of deadlines and responsibilities, that you have not stepped away, that your closeness does not depend on how smoothly the week happens to unfold. We surrender this week into your hands this morning, Lord. The workload that feels heavier than we would like, the conversations we are anticipating with hesitation, the financial pressures that follow us into these next few days, the uncertainty about how certain situations will resolve themselves. We release these things, not because we no longer care about the outcomes, but because we trust that you are far more capable of holding this week together than we are on our own. We surrender our need to control every detail of these next 7 days, Lord, the constant urge to plan for every possible obstacle, to protect ourselves from every disappointment before it happens, to manage every moment as though this week depends solely on our own effort. Teach us to hold our schedules loosely, to trust your timing even when meetings shift or plans change unexpectedly, and to find peace in knowing that you are already working through this week, even in ways we cannot yet see clearly. We surrender our fears about this week, Lord, the ones that made it hard to fall asleep last night. The ones that whisper this week will simply mirror the difficulty of the last one. The ones that make us hesitant to hope for anything different. Replace those fears with quiet confidence. Not confidence in our own ability to manage everything perfectly, but confidence in your faithfulness, which has carried us through every difficult week before this one. We surrender our regrets from last week, Lord. The moments we wish we had handled differently. The words we wish we had chosen more carefully. The opportunities we feel we may have let slip past us. Help us release the weight of what has already passed and instead focus on the grace available to us as this new week begins. Teach us to step forward without being anchored by what happened in the days behind us. We trust that you are already working through this week, Lord. Even in the waiting, even in the uncertainty, even in the parts of the schedule that feel unclear right now. Help us remain patient through each day, not passive, but quietly attentive, watching for the ways you are moving even when progress feels slow or invisible in the moment. Strengthen our faith through the ordinary hours of this week, when nothing dramatic seems to be happening but your presence remains steady beside us. In your gentle presence, we rest as this week begins, Lord. Not because every task ahead has been resolved, but because we are choosing this Monday morning to trust you more than our to-do list, to trust you more than our worries about what lies ahead, to trust you more than our need to control every outcome of these next 7 days. Let this moment of surrender carry us gently into the week ahead, steady, peaceful, and quietly held in your care from this morning until the one that follows.